Welcome to Saxon Math, Course 3, Lesson 109, Consumer Interest. Now, consumers are people who buy things. When people want to buy things and they don't have the money for them, they have to borrow money to buy things. Usually, people borrow money to buy large purchases, such as houses and cars, but sometimes people borrow money for everyday purchases on a credit card. Now, when you borrow money to buy things, the people who lend you the money will charge you interest on the money that you borrow. Now, different loans, different types of borrowing money, charge their interest in different ways. Most people have heard the word a mortgage. A mortgage is money borrowed to buy a home. Usually it lasts either 15 or 30 years, and the monthly payment charges the current interest and a small amount of the principal being the amount that's borrowed. What that means is that you're very, very slowly paying down the actual payment, and most of what you're paying every month is actually the interest on the payment and not actually the money that you borrow back. An auto loan usually has a higher interest rate, meaning they charge you more for the money, but it's over a shorter duration, and that higher interest rate with a shorter duration ends up charging you less than a 30-year loan for a mortgage would. Now, more common and a little bit more dangerous is credit card interest. Now, credit card companies offer monthly lines of credit. If you pay down every charge before the end of the month, they don't charge interest. If you have money to pay for everything that you borrowed money to buy, then you don't get charged interest. However, they almost always offer some sort of minimum payment, and sometimes a minimum payment doesn't even cover the interest on your debt. This can cause your debt to grow larger and larger, or just to stay the same and have you keep paying the bank just for having lent you money, costing you money in the long run. A lot of people run into trouble with credit card interest because they don't pay down their principal, and the interest eventually gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and they won't ever be able to pay it off. Example 1 talks about a guy named Jason. Now, Jason has a credit card balance of $1,200. The card company charges 2% interest on the unpaid balance each month. Now, part A of example 1 says, what is the interest charge on his current balance? Well, first we need to take that 2% and change it into a decimal so that we can multiply it out. 2% is 0.02. Now, 1,200 times 0.02 is going to be 24. That means that his interest is $24. Now, Jason has a choice of paying the balance plus the interest, which would be the 1,200 plus the 24, so $1,224, or paying a minimum payment of $50. Now, part B asks, if Jason makes only the minimum payment each month, what will the balance that will carry over to the next month be? Well, if we take his first month's balance plus interest, that $1,224, and we subtract 50, which is his minimum payment, what ends up being carried over to the next month is going to be $1,174. Now, that's less than the $1,124, but important to remember is in the next month he's going to be making charges again. And in part C, we see that he made only the minimum payment and then spent an additional $80 in purchases during the next month. So now, what's Jason's approximate balance after the next month's interest is applied? So, if we take that carryover number, that 1174, if we add 800, well, that's going to be 1,974. Now, in order to find the interest on that amount, we have to do 1,974 times 0.02. So 2 times 4 is 8, 2 times 7 is 14, 2 times 9 is 18, plus 1 is 19. 2 times 1 is 2 plus 1 is 3. And then that's going to be right here. And we're going to say that this, since we were asked to approximate, is about $40. Now, you'll notice that his first month's interest was $24. He made the minimum payment, and now his interest is almost the entire minimum payment. It's almost $40. That's almost 50. Which means that now he's going to owe $1,914. So you can see how this debt can get bigger and bigger really quickly from month to month if you're only making the minimum payment. Sometimes credit card companies will give you an option to pay more than the minimum payment but still make a partial payment and not make the full payment, and that's usually better to do than just making the minimum payment. If you're only making the minimum payment, eventually you won't even be covering your interest. As you can see, just 2 months made it so that it was almost all of his interest, 80% of his interest here, was 80% of his minimum payment. If he had another $800 month, his interest would be more than his minimum payment, and eventually he'd be going up and up until he reached his credit limit. Now, it's important that you don't spend money that you won't be able to earn and pay back when you have credit card debt. It's okay to spend money on a credit card that you can pay back. That's how people earn credit or increase their credit score, which is a number that helps companies like banks and credit card companies know how good you are at managing your money responsibly. If you have a high credit score, you can get lower interest rates on things like a mortgage or a car payment, and you can be approved for loans more easily. So having credit cards is not a bad thing, but making sure that you're being responsible about what kind of payments you're making, not having these increasing amounts, but paying down the money that you charge to your credit card can increase your credit score, and it can be a good financial habit. Now, I hope everyone stays safe, stays inside, and washes your hands. Make sure you're doing all your homework, and I hope you have a good day.